I called her Sweet Fang as a joke. Now she's real and looking right at me.
She wakes before the station lights rise, and the outpost is still as a held breath. Nora moves like a quiet shadow through the small room. She calls home a metal desk, a kettle, a cracked mug, a window that shows a thin slice of stars, 2 small dragons. Sleep on the warm edge of the console. Ember glows a soft ember orange. Kestrel is midnight blue and keeps one eye half open like a guard. Who dreams of Dutai. Nora is an elf woman with long hearing and a heart that remembers orders she no longer follows. She once wore a fleet jacket and spoke in numbers and codes. Now she speaks mostly to ships and to the dragons and to the silence between beacons. She carries cargo that does not ask for flags. She pays her bills and keeps her promises and avoids. The people who sell boat a courier drone ship docks at dawn. It brings a sack of water filters and a small crate with no sender tag. The crate hums in a low way like a far engine. Someone wrote 2 words on a cloth label in soft ink. Sweet Fang. Nora laughs once without voice. Last winter in a bad storm, she told a silly story to Megan on the long line. She said if she ever adopted some small strange pet, she would name it Sweet Fang just to make herself smile on hard nights. She had not told anyone else. Why would this joke sit on her desk? Nosh keeps the crate on the steel surface. She runs a scanner across the seal. No radiation. No trap heat rises under her palm. As if the wooden lid can feel her, Ember lifts her head and makes it tiny. Sound. Kestrel stands and spreads his little wings, 1 finger wide, not fear attention. Lid loosens with a soft sigh. Inside lies a soft nest and a curled, small shaped silver eyes open without hurry. A fine tail flicks once twice like a clock that keeps a gentle time. The creature is not human and not quite anything Nora has seen. Small smooth face, fine scales with a faint glow like lines of light under skin. No claws that threaten, only a posture that says, I will not harm if you do not harm. Nora does not reach. She lets the creature look. This is how ally work begins. The creature lifts 1 small hand and taps the desk with the tip of a finger. Tap tap. The room answers with a low tone from the consoles. Not an alarm, a note that is almost. Nora speaks in a soft voice. You are welcome here. If you are hungry, we can share. She points to the kettle. She moves slowly. She sets a shallow dish with warm tea and crumbs and a cut fruit. The creature looks, then places both hands on the desk. Edgen leans forward. It does not drink the tea. It touches the cup and a fine ring of light runs through the liquid as if reading it. Then it eats 2 crumbs and stops as if manners. Ember creeps close and lowers her head. Kestrel walks in. A circle, 1 step at a time. Both dragons bow as if the creature has some quiet rank. Nora feels a small lift in her chest. That might be hope. She asks softly without words with open hands, are you Sweet Fang? The creature blinks once slow, a warm gold color moves along the lines under its skin. Trust. Nora does not know how she knows. She just knows. Then a thin thread of light rises from a collar at the creature's neck, not metal grown. The thread hangs in the air and makes a tiny picture, a lab with white walls, a hand with pale fingers that hold a door, and a name written in air, Sweet Fang. Nora understands that someone helped this being run. Someone wrote the joke name because they heard Nora say it once. Someone mailed a life to her table. Because the world can be cruel and also careful. Outpost hum changes, a cold signal brushes the walls like a nail over glass. Nora looks to the window. A thin shadow passes the far stars. Not a patrol, not a traitor watcher. Closes the lid half down. She dims the console. She breathes slow and keeps her hands visible to herself. She knows how fear climbs into bad choices. She will not invite if radio blinks. A single line status audit. Please reply. No sender name, no port. Nora replies with a junk code that means wrong number. In the low lanes, the radio quiets, but the cold feeling stays. Cleans a space on the desk and sets a soft cloth. She lifts Sweet Fang out of the crate with both hands in a quiet promise. The body is light and warm like a small animal who has learned trust the hard way. Tail flick 1-2. A steady calm beach tells Ember and Kestrel to hold the door. Both dragons Take posts like blue and orange lanterns with teeth. Nora moves through the small room and gathers maps. Nutrient packs a coil of old signal wire, a photo of a green valley she has not seen in years, and a spare jacket that still smells like rain. She calls Megan. On a narrow channel, the voice comes in sleepy and sharp at once. What did you do this time? Nora says, I opened a joke and found a life. Megan is quiet, then laughs into a sigh. Of course you did. Do you need a doc? Nora says. I need a friend. Megan says, I have both. Station air grows tight with the watcher's patience. Nora feeds a false status to the port. She files a fake reactor test. She requests a quiet lane toward the ring world where Megan works. The port grants it. Maybe the port master owes her a favor. Maybe the port master just wants no trouble. Nora straps in. Sweet Fang sits on the console in front of her and watches the stars in the window. Ember curls at her left boot. Kestrel stands on the chair back to her right. She speaks to the ship like an old friend. Wake, move, be gentle. Ship lifts, and the outpost falls away. Lights shrink to beads on a cloth. The counter shows clean numbers. No lock, no tail. Not yet. Nora lets the engines hum slow and smooth. She keeps the power low to look like an old freighter. She hides the heat in steady lines. She knows how hunters read a wake, how they love a sudden climb and a bright burn. She gives them nothing easy. Sweet Fang raises a hand and draws simple shapes in light, a circle, a line, a door. Nora watches a story in small pictures, a room like a cage, a form with a mask, a contract word stamped in black asset. And then that pale hand again. The hand breaks a seal. The door opens. A path out. Nora feels anger slide over her like ash and she brushes it off. Anger can heat a choice, but it cannot aim it. She says, we will keep you safe. She does not add, unless I fail. She does not feed doubt. Blaine shifts a far beacon, goes dark, then bright again. A test. Nora moves the ship 1 degree, just enough to show she saw, but did not panic. She thinks of the fleet days when she would fly through drills like fire through paper. She thinks of the quiet after, when she learned to live without orders. She wonders if the queen who sings beyond the lanes still remembers the small courier who once refused to shoot. A thin ship appears ahead to the left. No lights, no name. It moves like a fish that wants to be a rock. Nora pretends not to see. She lowers speed to let a fake engine cool. The ship drifts without change. A watcher who wants her to blink. First Kestrel taps her shoulder with his small nose. Ember makes a low note like a held chord. Sweet Fang places a hand on the glass and paints a new path in light. A side spillway in the lane like a shallow river beside the main. Nora nods. She edges the ship into the spillway and lets the current carry them away from the watcher's perfect lineth. Shadow ship does not turn either. It missed them, or it wants her to think. South ring world grows from a coin to a crown. Silver bands throw cold light into the cabin. Nora calls Megan again. She says, Doc 9, no cameras. Bring TV. Slide into the hidden cradle, and the doors shut like a mouth that wants to protect a secret. Megan waits with a grin and tired eyes. She sees Sweet Fang, and the grin fades into a steady look that says, I will help, and I will ask more later. She touches the small being with 2 fingers to the shoulder, a polite hello. Sweet Fang glows gold for trust. Megan leads them into a small bay with tools and wires and a pot of plants that taste like mint on the air. Nora breathes out for the first time since dawn. Then the wall screen flashes a symbol, a star inside a broken circle, an old crest Nora hoped to never see again. The research mark that taught people to label life as proper. Time again locks the door and kills the screen light. She says, we are not alone in this station. Nora says, we were never alone since the crate opened. Sweet Fang taps her tail twice on the desk. Steady, brave, ready. Night comes fast in space, and faster in a heart that knows trouble. Nora wraps a blanket around the small guest she keeps the dragons near. She tells herself that fear belongs to the other side of the door. She builds a plan from simple pieces. Buy fuel, mask, the trail, find records. Leave before dawn. She sits with her back to the desk. She listens to the ring wind sing through the shell of the bay. She hears Ember breathe and Kestrel watch in Sweet Fang's tail. Keep time, tap, tap, like a promise that will not break. Even when someone tries. Nora closes her eyes, but does not sleep. She lets the plan breathe and grow like fire in slow air. She thinks of the title. She once said as a joke on a long night when she felt alone, "I called her Sweet Fang as a joke now. She is real and looking right at me, and now the joke is a vow and the vow is a road, and that road is opening under her feet." The ring world hums like an old song played through broken glass. Nora wakes before the station clock turns over the small dragons. Still sleep curled near the vent, Sweet Fang sits at the foot of the bed, staring at the blue light that leaks through. The walls, her silver eyes mirror the color, as if drinking it. Nora lies still and listens to the sounds of machinery, breath and pulse in equal measure. She knows the quiet means safety for Nalmagan, brings breakfast, a bowl of broth, and some dry bread. Her hair is tied in a knot, and her eyes look like someone who has stayed awake too long. She studies the guest on the bed and asks, "Soft, is she alive or something else?" Nora answers she is both. Megan nods once that track. Sweet Fang eats small pieces and hums faint tones that make the air soft to breathe. She points at a data board on the wall and draws lines in light shapes like a map. The path ends at a red circle, a hub world marked with a simple mark that means care, but Nora sees the double layer of code behind it. It is not care, it is cage. She feels her pulse jump and her throat go dry. Megan reads the signal logs from last night. A ghost ship passed through the lane. No ID, no lights, no heat trace, like a shadow pretending to be solid. They both know what that means. The Watchers have her scent. They have to move. Nora checks the ship in the dock. She resets the power lines and fills the coolant. She lets their dragons stretch their wings. Ember leaves sparks in the air. Kestrel glides in the hangar and hums low. The sound steadies her. She glances back toward the living quarters where Sweet Fang sits near the door, holding a metal cup between her hands, as if warming it through will somehow keep them all safe. Lift off in the dim light before the first shift of the day. The station does not blink a warning. It does not log their exit either. Megan has friends in the logs. The skiff slips into a narrow trade lane, heading toward the outer ring. Nora sets the engines to drift mode. They move quiet, slow, and invisible between the signals of larger ships. She learned long ago that hiding is sometimes louder than running. In the small silence of travel she studies her passenger. Sweet Fang glows soft gold when calm and pale silver when lost in thought. Now her light shifts between both, as if memory and fear are fighting. She reaches out and touches the deck plates, sending faint ripples of light through the ship's floor. It feels like heartbeat. Nora asks, "Can you speak words yet?" Sweet Fang tilts her head. Her lips move, but the sound is only a soft chord that feels more than says yes. Nora tries again. "Can you tell me where you came from?" Sweet Fang draws the same lab in the air and adds a second image, a high room full of tanks and one human woman who opens a door. She shows that woman's face for a moment, the line of her jaw, the set of her eyes. Then the image fades with a sense of sorrow. Nora says quietly, "Whoever she was, she gave you a chance. We will keep that safe." Man leans from the back seat. The scanners show something faint behind them, a thin echo of power like another ship mirroring their route. Nora does not change course or speed. She knows the trick. She sets the reactor to false cycle, sending fake bursts that look like damage to any distant sensor. Then she slips them into a side corridor, a broken lane used by miners decades ago, where no one bothers to look. The signal fades out. After a while, maybe the Watchers lost them, maybe they are just patient. Lane empties into a field of dust and thin debris. The ringed world grows in the forward screen, a giant crown of ice and rock wrapped in glowing storms. It hums with magnetic energy strong enough to scramble instruments. Nora grins. Storms mean shelter. She guides the ship through the edge of the belt. The shields hiss with static and lightning. Dances outside like living threads of fire. Ember chirps in delight. Kestrel spreads his wings against the glass, and the static makes them spark. Bluethy drop toward the lower layers of the ring, a hollow city hidden in the curve of metal ribs. Old fleet architecture turned into a maze of market stalls and secret docks, the perfect place to disappear the ship. Land soft in a dim bay marked as maintenance. Only Megan handles the codes. A door slides open into a corridor of humming wires and leaking Steam mechanic waits, gray coat, greasy hands, a grin that hides sharp eyes. Nora remembers him from a long time ago when she still wore a badge. His name is Sam. He owes her for saving his life on a bad run. Sam looks at Sweet Fang and whistles. Low new pet, Nora says. Cargo. Sam raises a brow. Sure, and I am a saint. He waves them through in the back room. They hook Sweet Fang to a clean scanner. The screen fills with lines of light. Not medical, not machine, alive code wrapped around something beating. Sam leans back, muttering she is not made, she grew, and someone printed her mind on top of it, a living blueprint. Nora stares at the image. It looks like a lattice around a soft heart. Megan whispers they built people from patterns, then sold them as toy. Sweet Fang reaches out, touches the display, and the lines shift, showing a different mark, the same crest from the old research division that Nora saw last night, the star in a broken circle. She feels cold all over again. She knows that mark from old missions. When her orders said recover prototypes at all cost, she had never asked what those prototypes were. Until Sam kills the scanner before it can transmit any data. The wall lights flicker, a sure sign someone pinged the room. He says quietly, you need to leave, I will scrub what I can. But they will know something. Woke up. Nora thanks him. She does not say goodbye. She never says goodbye to people she wants to live with. Load supplies, fast water packs, wire coil, a box of dried fruit. Megan plots a new lane across the dark side of the ring, an registered vector that runs through old mining fields. It is slow but safe for now. The ship lifts again. The storm hides them. Lightning dances over the hull. Ember growls softly as if daring the sky to hit hard. Nora looks back at the small figure sitting on the console. Sweet Fang stares out the window, tail moving slow, and even Nora says they will come again. Sweet Fang looks at her, and the color along her skin turns gold. Calm trust. A pulse of light runs through the cabin, warm and alive. It feels like courage. Sharad. Megan watches from her seat and says, you know, this will not end until we find who started it. Nora nods. I know the Queen once said every kindness becomes a map. I think she was right. Sweet Fang looks up at her and taps the console. Twice. Steady rhythm, ready. Rhythm ship passes beyond the storm into a long quiet stretch of space. The engines whisper, the air tastes like metal and hope. Megan closes her eyes at the console, and Nora keeps watch, her hands light on the controls. The stars ahead are pale and waiting behind them. The watchers regroup, but Nora does not look back. Not tonight. She lets herself believe that even fugitives can fly towards something better. The hollow city fades behind them, and the space ahead grows dark, and still the ship drifts slow through a corridor of dead satellites and broken glass. Nora keeps her hands steady on the controls. She knows this kind of silence. It hides claws. Megan sits beside her, reading the faint signals that come and go like ghosts. Ember and Kestrel sleep by the window, their scales glimmering under dim lights. Sweet Fang sits in the middle of the deck, tracing circles with her finger, soft light following the motion like ripples across water. The circles shape into a pattern, a gate symbol, and a single arrow pointing down. Nora frowns. She leans closer, and the light deepens, showing a faint planet mark buried in the code lines around them. The system responds to the pulse as if recognizing her. The screen flickers, alive, coordinates flash, then vanish. Nora looks at Megan and says softly she knows where they came from. Again taps the console, tracing the pattern back through the map. A line appears, leading toward a forgotten system, marked only by a fleet archive number. Nothing else. No name, no roots, no trade stamps. She whispers that place was sealed after the revolt, after the labs fell. Why would she want to go there? Sweet Fang's tail flicks twice, a quiet sign of trust or need. Nora sighs. She already knows the answer, because that is where truth waits, and because every road runs backward before it can run forward. They travel through long lanes of dark dust fields where the stars burn faintly like old lanterns. The skiff hums soft and low, its heart steady. Megan adjusts the com array and sets the signal filters to passive. They move unseen under the noise of space around them. Once a flicker of light passes the viewport, too bright to be debris, too small to be a ship. Nora does not follow it. She knows some lights are Bathors later, The dead moon rises ahead, gray and veined with cracks like dry clay. Nora steers them into a crater and lands between two broken towers. The surface hums faintly alive under the engines. Sweet Fang steps out first. Her feet leave glowing prints in the frost. Ember and Kestrel follow, wings folded low. Megan scans the horizon. No movement, only wind inside the crater's shadow they find. A structure half buried in ice and dust. A narrow door stands open, its edge lit by a soft pulse that matches Sweet Fang's glow. Nora breathes once deep and cold, then follows her inside. The air feels thick like memory. Each step echoes long down. Metal halls where light crawls along the walls, as if it remembers how to move. Reach a chamber filled with pods. Most cracked open, empty, only one still hole in the center, its glass fogged with frost. Sweet Fang walks to it and places both hands. On the surface, light flows from her palms. The frost melts away and the pod glows. Inside lies another being, almost her reflection, but older, dimmer. Its breathing faint. Megan stares wide. What is that? Nora answers her other half. Sweet Fang leans close. Her eyes bright gold. The being inside opens its own and meets her gaze. Then a pulse of sound fills the chamber. Deep, slow, alive, the walls respond. Lines of light surge across the room, writing words in air. We are the same, two halves of one truth. Lost and found, the voice speaks through the ships, comes through their bones. Through memory, it says you took the name and the path followed. Nora grips her chest. The sound vibrates in her ribs like thunder under skin. She hears flashes of orders, old calls from fleet days, bring them back alive or not. She shuts the memory down. She looks at Sweet Fang, who now glows brighter every second. The two beings seem to speak without words. The pod opens and the twin steps out, touching the floor. She looks fragile, but her gaze holds the strength of stone. She says softly, the lab's burned, but their code hid here waiting. They tried to call me back. You stopped them. Again kneels by a console. The data streams rewrite themselves. Logs unfold, showing records of thousands of templates, built, tested, sold, and erased. She copies what she can onto a clean shard, her hands shaking. She says, these are names, all of them. People, not numbers. Nora looks around. Each pod, each tag, a silent tomb. She whispers, we cannot carry them all. Sweet Fang answers, we do not have to. The truth. Wolf ground, shudders, alarms hum through the corridor. Megan looks up. They know we are here. Nora pulls her toward the exit. The twin looks at them and smiles faint. She places a hand on Sweet Fang's shoulder and fades into light, merging into her twin for a moment. The whole chamber fills with gold. The walls crack. The hum rises like wind through hollow trees. They run through the passage as the ceiling begins to break. Apart, chunks of ice fall like soft stones. Ember flies ahead, his fire lighting the path. Kestrel guards the rear, his eyes narrow, glowing bright blue. The ship waits in the crater, its lights blinking fast. Nora shoves Megan up the ramp. Sweet Fang leaps after them just as the surface splits open. A beam of gold fires into the sky. The light reaches orbit, then spreads like a wave across the stars. The lift-off engines screaming against the drag of falling ice. The moon below fractures slow and beautiful, its light pouring upward instead of down. Megan checks the sensors. Data flowing wild, every locked file in the FleetNet. Just opened. The archives are alive, the names are out. She says, breathless, the records are spreading across the lanes. They cannot hide anymore. Nora keeps her eyes on the widening gap below. The glow fades, leaving only quiet darkness. Sweet Fang stands beside her, small, steady. Her tail flicks once, twice, the pulse of completion. Ember and Kestrel settle by the glass, wings folded against their backs. Megan leans against the wall, eyes closed, tired and full of awe. Nora watches the stars steady again. She feels the hum of the engines, the beat of hearts near her. She whispers, we made the ghosts speak. Sweet Fang glows gold in answer, not words but meaning, hope. The ship turns toward the far horizon, leaving the dying moon behind, carrying light stolen from silence, a promise whispered to the stars, that nothing made with kindness can ever be erased. The journey home begins slow and quiet. The ship floats between lanes of fading light. Nora sits by the window, her reflection soft against the stars. Ember sleeps near her boots, Kestrel hums under his breath, keeping time with the steady heart of. The ship's Sweet Fang stands on the console, her glow dim and calm like fire, resting under ash. Megan works in the corner sorting through the data. They pulled from the dead moon. Every file holds a name, every name a story once stolen outside the glass. The galaxy turns like a slow tide. The wave of released truth spreads from port to port, unseen and unstoppable signals bloom across hidden networks. Words travel faster than war. Nora knows that soon the fleet and the corporations will see what they have lost. They will send their threats, but truth once spoken does not die. It grows. The Queen's vessel finds them before the fourth cycle. It glides from folded light, a living sculpture of gold and blue. She speaks through the cum, her voice warm and quiet. You did what no fleet could. You made them remember what they were. Nora answers, we only opened the door. Sweet Fang found the key. The Queen smiles, a sound more than a sight, and says, then let her choose what comes next. Sweet Fang walks to the center of the cabin. She spreads her hands, light rising from her palms. Like mist, the glow fills the ship, wrapping them in gold. The Queen's face appears within the light, eyes kind and deep. She asks softly, do you wish to come with us to join the free minds where the old code cannot follow? Sweet Fang looks at Nora for a long moment. Her tail moves slow, once, twice, a goodbye, then turns bright with color. She smiles, small, gentle, her voice soft as air. Thank you for naming me. Nora feels her throat tighten, but she nods. Sweet Fang steps into the light, and the glow folds around her. Her body becomes part of the radiance, then fades away. The air still hums with warmth, her presence a heartbeat that does not end. The Queen bows her head and the image fades. The fleet turns away, drifting into distant dark, carrying Sweet Fang to where free souls build new worlds. The skiff is silent after she goes. Ember presses against Nora's leg. Kestrel lowers his head. She rests a hand on both and whispers, we let her go because that is how family stays whole. Megan looks up from her console and smiles, tired and soft. You know, people will tell this story like a legend. Nora shrugs. Maybe, but legends start with small things. Like a joke, a name, a promise. The stars outside seem to agree. They flicker gold once and then settle. The ship docks above a quiet planet, blue with wide oceans and green land. Nora steps out onto the ramp. The air smells of salt and rain. For the first time in years, she feels the ground under her boots, the sound of waves instead of engines. She breathes deep and lets the past rest. Megan joins her, holding the data shard, all the proof of what they freed. They hand it to a courier who will send it across the net to those who still believe in truth. Nora watches the courier leave. She says softly to Megan, this is not the end. Megan smiles. It never is. They walk down the hill together. The dragon circling above the horizon glows with the first light of day. Nora looks at the sky and feels peace. Not the peace of victory, but the peace of purpose. Met later that night. She sits by a small fire outside her cabin. The dragon's sleep closed. The wind moves through tall grass. She takes a tiny cube from her pocket. It glows faint gold. When she opens her hand, a soft rhythm plays, a tail tapping once, twice, gentle, alive. She laughs under her breath and says, see, I still hear you. The sound fades into the night like a lullaby carried by wind and stars. The next morning she will fly again, maybe to a new world, maybe to nowhere. She will carry the shard of light that once was Sweet Fang's laughter. She will tell the truth when asked. She will remember that kindness can build universes. The camera pulls away, the sky wide, the stars bright and endless. The ship waiting on the edge of dawn, her voice quiet over the hum of wind. We are all witnesses. We begin. If you felt this story stay with you, subscribe for more journeys of hope, courage, and human heart. Follow to see where Nora, Ember, and Kestrel fly next into the quiet places where kindness becomes legend.